Greetings strangers, JayReimsGaming here, and welcome to another installment of the Beginner's Guide series. Today we'll be going over the pros and cons of this build, where to put your attributes, good starter items, and an overview showcasing the talents of this particular build at the end of this video, so stay tuned. So if you haven't heard by now, I do live stream each week, Friday to Sunday, between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on your favorite streaming site. Subscribe and turn on notifications so that you don't miss a content release. Don't forget to check out our community Discord. All the links are in the description down below. And now without further ado, let's return to your scheduled program. So let's start with the pros and cons. This Fire Aura Paladin is actually really easy to learn, it's fun to play, and it's fast to level in normal. It is also very tanky. And finally, it scales very well through normal play. Now the damage will fall off hard once you get into mid-game with your low leveling gear, so definitely consider respeccing before you start heading to Mephisto. Because this is a melee build, you will be very weak against ranged attacks. Not to mention all of the fire immunities you will deal with once you get into mid-game. And just like every class that is not a sorceress, you definitely will have low movement without that teleport, so definitely consider getting a Staff of Teleportation. Now as far as your attributes are concerned, it is a little bit different than some of the other builds. You're going to want to put enough strength into the requirements to wear your gear, as well as to do dex until you hit that 75% block rate with your Holy Shield ability up. And then finally the rest into Vitality. So now that we've jumped in game, let's talk a little bit about your Mercenary. So since this is a melee build, I decided to go with a Might Mercenary from Act 2. And when that Might Aura is activated, it increases the damage done by you and your party. Now as far as his gear, I went ahead and went with the Worm Skull Bone Helm, the Smoke Light Plate, as well as the two-hander Polearm Insight. Now the Mercenary from Act 2 with the Holy Freeze Aura would also be a very viable thing since you are melee, you don't have a lot of CC, and so that does help slow some of the other monsters from getting to you as well. It slows their hits, so that's also a very good option. Now let's look at the Paladin's inventory. So on my secondary, I do have a Staff of Teleportation. On my main and offhand, I went with the Black Rune Word as well as the Spirit, the Angelic Wings Amulet, and the rings as well. I decided to go with the Hustle for the armor, Venom Grip Gloves, Saigon's Belt, and the Infernal Stride Demon Hide boots. Now with this particular setup, I just wanted to make sure that I was able to get as close to or be able to cap out my resistances moving onward into mid-game, as well as to have maximum amount of damage output and chance on hit. Now some of the other options you might consider is Goblin Toe Boots, the Ancient's Pledge, the Smoke Rune Word, Gloom's Trap Belt, String of Ears Belt, Arctic Binding, the Snake Cord, and the normal magic finding items such as Chance Guards, Dual Natural Rings, and Gold Wrap Belt. And what's the wonderful thing about Diablo 2 Resurrection is as you're looking for these items and gearing for your character when you get into Countess, into Nightmare, what's wonderful is that anything could particularly happen. You might get some of these items, you might not get some of these items. So it's really fun to see how the RNG works in this game. Just remember, this is just one example. Let's move on to the skill tree. So I went ahead and put one-hit wonders into Prayer, Defiance, Cleansing, and so I can get access to Vigor. I also hit Salvation with it, which is also one of the synergies of the Fire Aura, as well as dumping the last bit of my points into Resist Fire. On the offensive auras, I went ahead and put 1 point into Might, and then I maxed out with 20 base points into Holy Fire. Over on combat skills, they're just going to be one-hit wonders into Sacrifice and Zeal, which is going to be your main basic attack. 1 point wonders into Holy Bolt, Smite, Charge, Blessed Hammer, and Holy Shield, so you can get that max 75% block. Now let's go over some of the skills you might use with this build. Now one of the auras I really enjoy is Vigor, which you can actually have on switch with your teleportation staff. And basically what I like to do is be able to switch it so I can move around a little bit easier and then reasonably be able to teleport, as well as using another ability called Charge, which you charge into battle and attack an enemy. So you can actually use that to maneuver yourself around just a little bit faster. Unfortunately, you will stop you once you hit an enemy. Next is Holy Shield, which enhances your shield with divine power. So when you look at your defense here, as you can see, I'm only at 53% chance to block. Now, when I activate my shield with, which I have on F4, let's go ahead and hit that up. Now my defense has gone up. Now I'm at 75% block chance. And this definitely helps you maintain that tankiness when you are in the midst of a lot of enemies. Now your main attack is going to be Zeal, which allows you to attack multiple adjacent enemies with a single attack. It also increases your attack rating and damage percent, which is very, very helpful. And it also helps a little bit with your AoE damage on top of your Holy Fire and your Zeal damage with the applied fire damage. Now, Holy Fire, when active, the aura damages nearby enemies with heavenly flames and adds fire damage to your attack. So now, right now, when it's at the max level, I think with an extra, 4 skills, it's currently doing 1.2k damage to 1.6k damage to each attack, as well as having a damage over time fire damage aura, which is 200 to 500 damage roughly. Now let's go slay some demons. So as you can see here, when I'm running around here, with Hustle, you have a lot of mobility. As you can see, it's already doing a lot of damage just by running up to these guys. Now, of course, with me being level 40 on this test Paladin, this is actually working really, really well. I can switch to use my teleportation staff and hop over the moats, which helps a little bit with the mobility, because obviously we're not a sorceress. But as you can see, everything is just dying really, really fast. It's just really unfortunate that once you get closer to Mephisto, you're going to have to respec with all the fire resistance guys in there. It's just not going to be super duper helpful. But as far as like leveling and going through normal, whether it be a ladder starter or a new character, as you can see, this is actually a blast to play this. And with the chance on hit, with our attack rating, as you can see, I hit almost every single time, just mowing enemies down. Although this build does fall off in mid-game, it is an absolute blast to level. It's really simple, really easy to use. For beginner players, ladder starters, this is an absolute great build to try out for sure. Just remember that when you have to deal with immunity issues, when it gets to mid-game, around the time when you have to take on Mephisto, definitely consider respecking to hammers or smite, something like that, which will allow you to progress through the game until you do get that wonderful Flame Rift Grand Charm, commonly known as a Sunder Charm, and you can use these abilities anywhere. And unfortunately, in order to make this build shine, you have to have really expensive gear to make it make sense. So thank you once again, champions, for watching until the end of this video. It does help in the battle against the almighty algorithms. If you like my content and was worth the watch, then consider subscribing to my channel, leaving a like, and lastly, leave a comment on this video with some feedback on how much you enjoyed it, or even how I can make these videos even better for new players to enjoy, such as yourself. Are you ready to play? Let's play!